All right, I think we should start. Good morning, everyone. I extend a warm welcome to all the participants for today's webinar on the significance of CI in global pharmaceutical drug development and commercialization, organized by BRIC Academy. I will be your moderator for this informative session. Allow me to briefly introduce myself. I'm Nishu Sharma, and I have over a decade of experience in competitive intelligence and strategy consulting. In the past, I worked with WNS Global Services, where I was a part of GSK Knowledge Center, where precisely I worked for Weave Healthcare in the HIV space. Prior to that, I worked with Moody's Analytics, and currently I'm engaged with Adametnex, a startup based in Hyderabad led by Virendra Kumar. Today, we also have a lineup of three speakers, Virendra Kumar, Atul Banerjee, and Faheem Rasheed, who will delve into the importance of CI and its impact on strategic decision-making in pharma industry. Following their presentations, we will host a Q&A session to further explore the topic. We also wanted to let you know that Viren has joined us from India, while Atul and Faheem are joining us from UK. Without any further delay, let's quickly embark onto today's webinar. Our discussion will commence with brief introductions from our speakers, highlighting their professional and academic achievements. This will be followed by addressing three key questions. What is competitive intelligence? Why is it essential for all the pharmaceutical professionals to understand CI and to make themselves aware around this concept? And how CI is effectively executed in crafting winning pharmaceutical marketing strategies. Now let's quickly direct our attention to the speakers of the day. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. My name's Atul. So this is my journey. I studied aerospace engineering and got a scholarship with the Royal Air Force, but then went into the world of management consulting. I was a strategy consultant for Accenture and ZS Associates for a while. In fact, one of my instructors, flight instructors, was part of military intelligence in the Vietnam War. That's how old I am. But he was the first person I ever encountered that spoke about intelligence. When I worked in the world of startups after I left consulting, I actually did some work in competitive intelligence without really realizing that's what I was doing, because I needed to understand the competition, what products and services were being offered, and how to position the startup relative to the market. Since about 20 years now, I've been involved in this field of competitive intelligence. And for the last 5 years, have been teaching and mentoring and lecturing for the London Business School, presenting case studies for UCL in London, and also teaching with the Forethought India, which is a platform for students in India, teaching business strategy and competitive strategy. Over to you, Faheem.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Atul. I just wanted to start by saying welcome, everyone, and thank you ever so much for joining our first inaugural BRIC Academy webinar. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Faheem Rasheed, born and raised in London. My journey started as a chemical engineer, coupled with a master's in management. And actually in my master's, this is where I actually started learning about the fundamentals of marketing strategies. And one person that came across very heavily in those modules was someone called Porter. Michael Porter was someone that you may have heard of or come across, but you will definitely learn a little bit more about in our academy. Without realizing it, within one of the modules, I was actually doing competitive intelligence because we were looking at, funny enough, the donut market, and they were assessing the competitive landscape. And that actually intrigued my conscience, and I thought, actually, this sounds very interesting. I then did my dissertation for GSK at that time, and it was for the space of HIV. And that really wanted me to go further in to try and delve into the space of consulting. And then my next step was actually working with a consulting firm. Some of you may have come across it, Dialis Consulting. I started at Dialis when there were around 10 people, and after 6 or 7 years, 130, 140 employees in different parts of the globe. There, learned how to do competitive intelligence, how to provide insightful impacts for clients within the pharma from different stakeholders, be it brand managers, be it medical directors, or even be it, VPs or CEOs within pharma. I then decided to move into the other side and working within industry. So I did a couple of stints in Shionogi, EU, and Lundbeck, the UK affiliate, doing different types of analytics, where CI actually came in one of the streams as well as one of my remits. I then started to freelance. It's been about 15, 16 years, and I've been servicing different clients. Freem is one of them that I've been working for as a long-term engagement partner. I actually know Atul because Atul was one of my external consultants that I used many, many years ago. And the roles reversed. How I know Viren is because I actually was an external consultant that Viren used more than 6 or 7 years ago when he was on the consulting side. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Faheem, and thank you, Atul. And good morning, everyone, for having us today. My name is Viren. I'm a pharmacist by qualification. I also did my MBA from NIT Mohali. My entry in the world of pharma CI was coincidental. It was an accident. I ended up in an internship. This is somewhere in 2009. And at that time, founder of ValueEdge was searching for the interns, and fortunately, I was being recommended. And moving fast forward, so in 2010, I got my first opportunity with eValueServe, where Bayer Pharmaceutical was trying the offshore research solutions. I worked with them for 2 years. They got an opportunity to be in their Berlin office, in the New Jersey office, and seeing the world from their perspective. Briefly also joined ValueEdge again in where they were working with Roche, and then gradually moved to GSK Knowledge Center with WNS Group. I was taking care of GSK vaccine business. Got an opportunity when Novartis was setting up their Global Capability Center in 2014. I joined as a CI lead, and then eventually become the Integrated Insights Manager. I served them till 2019. Mostly, I've worked with most of the CI consulting firm on the other side. I had my own understanding of the subject, identified gaps, and I've decided that why not resolve those issues by my own. We started Adamant Next in 2019, and now this is 5 years in business, and I think we are one of the fastest growing company in this space. Over to you, Nisha.
Thank you so much, Viren, Atul, and Faheem, for introducing yourselves. Now let's move on to the first section and the first quick question of this webinar. What is competitive intelligence and how we do it? Next slide, please.
So this is my favorite analogy, and let me ask this question to Faheem and Atul. According to you, who needs to be more responsible? Somebody driving a bicycle or somebody riding a plane? I must say passenger plane.
It's interesting you brought this analogy. I was thinking about this and trying to think about every path when it comes down to do these two examples. When I look at the guy on the bike, he's just one person. He's responsible for himself, the way I see it, but he's also has to be aware of where he's going on the road, and where the air passengers, there's probably a Boeing, with hundreds of people on there. So the co-pilots are very, very responsible, A, for the guys on the plane, and B, have to be critically aware of what's going outside the plane. And I guess I'll transfer what that actually means to the world of business, to Atul, who can step in.
Yeah, I agree with you, Faheem. They both need to be responsible. They both have and have to have an awareness of the environment and what's happening outside. But I think with the pilots, they have a bigger impact on their responsibility because they have more people to think about internally with their co-pilot and their students and passengers. They also have to look outside for other aircraft and environmental factors, make sure that they are reaching their destination and taking care of any other inputs that may be happening from the outside. And actually the impact of that responsibility is greater because there are more lives involved and a greater impact with flying a plane than a bicycle. In terms of translating that to the world of corporates and competitive intelligence, in a similar way, a large company has to think about its competitors. Perhaps a large company versus a small company has more revenue, more cost base, more people to think about. And so the impact and of that responsibility for a large company is greater. Viren?
No, absolutely. That's something, I use the metaphor of aeroplane and relating it with the big organization where you are not only responsible for this high value asset, you are also responsible for people inside, and accidentally if you make a damage, then there are also life outside. So there is a very significant monetary loss is attached to it, and as they need the navigation system outside, CI also act like a navigation system within the current ecosystem. So with that, let's move on and understand the world of CI.
Okay, so let's explore this a bit more. Here's a definition. So it is an art and science. Let's look at these words. Basically, it's a process of gathering relevant information, analyzing it, and distributing it. So these words are quite important. It's a science because there is a methodology behind it, but it's not just a case of collecting information or data. So there's data out there, and you use secondary online searching and primary research, which is speaking to people to gather data that's collected into information. But it doesn't stop there. So you need humans to analyze that information and create intelligence. And intelligence isn't good on its own. You have to then provide insights to your clients, and that's where the value comes. And the whole idea of competitive intelligence is to do this in a way that enables your company to stay ahead of its competition and other factors in the environment.
So if I may ask, Atul, on the previous slide, there is a lot of discussion around artificial intelligence use. So according to you, on which segments AI plays a very significant role?
AI is playing a more significant role now and will continue to do so as it's evolving. I think it's a good foundation. It shortcuts a lot of the data gathering process, the early part of competitive intelligence, but you still need human interaction to understand what it means and the nuances of that intelligence, which I think artificial intelligence and machine learning is still, it's in its infancy. In terms of the previous slide, there are automated processes that allow a plane to take off and land, but it's not so advanced that it can take care of unexpected turbulence or a plane that's not flying in its flight path that the pilot has to react to, or maybe there's a problem on the aircraft that the pilot has to take over the automatic pilot. So there is a place for human interaction as well.
So I guess I was just about to say, sorry. So I guess if we translate that, that means that a sudden shift in market dynamics, and challenges that a pharma company or even a small biotech company faces, is equivalent. So meaning that machine learning or AI helps you to a certain degree, but if a market forces completely just change and go the other direction, then you need humans basically to be able to counteract and navigate that.
That's correct.
Certainly. So this information overload, what we are seeing in this internet age, I think it is very difficult for humans to collect and digest that information. and technology is a complementary tool which helps us enable us to do it well. Thank you. Let's move ahead.
So the idea of intelligence and understanding your enemy, if you like, has been around for a long time, thousands of years. Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. Some of you may have heard of this book, but it's been pivotal for companies understanding the competitive environment. In fact, on the very first day I joined my very first company, Accenture, we had an army officer come in and talk about military intelligence. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm in the world of management consulting. What is an army guy doing here? But he spoke about understanding your competition in terms of military strategy. So understanding the enemy and preempting, having enough intelligence about the person you're competing against so that you can react to changes that they are making and prepare for different scenarios. So this idea of understanding your competition, your environment, and having a plan for different scenarios has been around for a long time. So let's go to the foundations of competitive intelligence as we know it in the next slide. So Michael Porter, professor at Harvard, he came up with this model, this framework called 5 Forces, which looks at understanding the marketplace, the dynamics of the marketplace. So the suppliers, your buyers, potential new entrants, substitutes, and of course the industry rivalry, which is the competitive part of it. And companies have been using this framework to engage in competitive intelligence work. In fact, I happen to have his book. He wrote this book in 1980, and this is a 1980 version of it. I actually can't see that. There you go. So he created this framework. He taught competitive intelligence, and many other authors have come about. I used to work for Leonard Fold, who wrote this book, which is The Secrets of Competitive Intelligence. And he was one of the founding fathers of competitive intelligence in the corporate world as well. So the whole world has evolved. If you go to the next slide, I think this is quite a good slide to show different models that have been employed when you're trying to answer certain questions. So KICS stands for Key Intelligence Questions. That's a competitive intelligence term for the types of questions that our clients ask us and we have to answer. So for example, when you're trying to compare yourself to the competition, what's a good way to do that? We can use a comparison matrix. I'm sure you've seen something like this before. What about understanding your competitors' vulnerabilities and how we can exploit them? I mean, that's fundamental to really understanding how you position yourself in the marketplace. So you can use a SWOT analysis. What about understanding how your competition might react to your own strategy or maybe something in the market that changes? Four corners analysis is another framework that Michael Porter came up with. And it's one of the things that we use. It's actually fundamental to wargaming and strategy gaming. So this framework really enables a company to really understand the mindset of competition. What about if your competitors launch early or lower their pricing? Well, and also perhaps there's something that happens in the marketplace, the regulatory environment changes. So this is where you do scenario analysis workshops. And one of the things we speak about in the workshop that we're running in July is more about strategic gaming and how that plays a role in competitive intelligence.
So when it comes to what are the core CI services? So you have seen the framework, you have seen the need. On the slide, you are seeing some of the very commonly consumed CI services by pharmaceutical customers. I must highlight that this is more relevant to innovative pharmaceutical companies, which are developing first, the innovative medicine, maybe first in class, best in class. So what exactly it includes? So one is the first one is the conference service. So we are basically talking about the medical conferences, and at medical conferences, you usually have all of your key stakeholders, be it physicians, payers, people from universities, researchers, everybody is almost there, and your competitors are also there. So it's a wonderful opportunity to learn from them at medical conferences. Another thing is the primary intelligence, and how the primary and secondary differ is secondary is already there in the public domain in one way or another way. The information is already there. But in case of primary intelligence, this information is largely with people. So it's related to perception, how they feel, and in the world of business, it matters a lot. Competitive landscape, understanding in which market you are operating, your direct and indirect competition. Deep dive research, this is where you want to understand the whole ecosystem, the patient journey, how the overall disease is evolving, how the standard of care is evolving, are there treatment guidelines, and are there any restrictions related to the cost associated with the treatment. Commercial analysis, which is about, okay, you have developed a drug, how to differentiate in the market. So commercial activities, who's your targeted customer, who's targeted patient, what the optimum pricing look like, what are the key messages you want to highlight which resonate with your customers who are physicians, how you want to competitively position your drug, which are the areas you want to highlight, which are the areas you want to underplay. So these are some essential analysis. Last but not the least, uh, in case of these companies are privately listed, then they also conduct these quarterly earning calls. We call it IR, earning release call. And this is where they talk about health of their business, what are the key growth drivers, deterrents, how the near term and the long term outlook of the company look like. So these are wonderful opportunities to learn what is going well, what is not going well. Do we need to learn from our competition, or do we need to take care of the mistakes done by the competition, and we need to be aware, and we should not repeat them again. Let's move on.
Thank you so much. That was very indeed insightful. Let's move on to the next section of the presentation, why all pharma professionals need to be aware about CI. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Nishu. I won't dive too deeply on this slide. I'm sure many of you have seen, this model of the pharma industry. And the critical point I just really want to raise is, you can see here, it takes around probably around 15 years now, the maximum time for a drug to be developed. And, about 10, 15 years ago, we were talking about $1 billion. Now it's gone 3 times more expensive. The point is, in each of these phases, even at pre-discovery, when you're looking at so many therapeutic targets, you need to use competitive intelligence. And as you ramp up, because it takes so long, when you get into human trials, it takes 6 to 7 years. And if you're not understanding even at that early age, what your competition is doing, what assets a company, your main competitor has, in early drug delivery, what are they thinking? What are even your potential customers, your key opinion leaders? What do they think about, the therapeutic target that you're working on? So you need to be ahead of understanding in each of these phases of clinical trials. And even if once you've got great data, safety, efficacy, when you're even in the FDA review stage, you almost need to be ramping up your analytics, especially your competitive intelligence, to try and understand, when we are in launch phase, how are we going to commercialize? What's the best way to commercialize? You're almost testing your messages, years way before you're actually at the stage of the FDA review, right? You're testing it with your key opinion leaders. So the valuable point here is that, your decision support services such as CI, it's paramount, given the amount of investment that is required and the amount of years that it simply takes to try and get one drug through this whole process?
Absolutely fine. As you highlighted, it takes long time, heavy investment, and largely what we have seen is uh, in the early stage. So if we go a decade before, people used to focus more on the clinical success. That okay, how to get this drug approved, and I think that was relevant 1 or 2 decades before because getting US FDA approval was a challenge, or be it a EMA approval was a challenge. Uh, but now, if we look back, most of the major, the disease burdening diseases, uh, they have some sort of standard of care, and now the expectation from next generation treatment has gone up. So even having a clinical success is not enough. People also, and especially your investors, they also want to make sure that there is a commercial success. And why, what we mentioned by commercial success is once the drug is out there in market, ideally it should deliver, the billions of dollars. So they become the Pixent of the world, or Humira of the world, or all the not even billion. We are talking about 15 billion, 20 billion. The new benchmarks are coming in. So at the end of the day, it is also about business. So just think about a company or a person who's starting an investment now, and they have almost 10 to 15 year post. They will have a drug in the market, and they need to ensure that whatever problem they have decided to solve moving forward, uh, it they still remain relevant by the time they actually got approval and commercialize the medicine.
Yeah, and that's just key. I was about to say, yeah, I mean, because of just the sheer time, you have to make sure that you have these services that you're utilizing, like competitive intelligence, just to stay aware of what's going on in the market. And let's face it,
Otherwise,
yeah. And I was about to say,
that just reminded me there was a statement of Nokia CEO. He was literally came into that call, and then he said, we have not done anything wrong, but they were completely overshadowed by companies like Apple or Samsung.
And they were obsolete, right? They turned out to be obsolete. And I was just about to say, my final point on this slide is that when a drug enters the market, there's so many, I guess, forces to try and understand, is it a Me Too drug? Is it an innovative drug? Is it first to market? Will it be, fifth to market? Is the route of administration an ease for a patient? If it's a device, has it got the latest technology in the device? There's so many challenges, when a drug does come into the market, and it's just not the fact that safety and efficacy is paramount. It's the commercial aspects of, the drug value. You guys must have heard of value thrown in, so many times now, because it's so key now from a commercial assessment point of view, that how valuable is the drug? Is it worth the cost? As we go on, in markets like the US and Europe, there's a squeeze of spending money from the government on this kind of treatment. So it's very critical that we leverage competitive intelligence throughout the whole process. Next slide. This slide also then touches upon, actually, I've said a few times now that competitive intelligence is very key. So through the whole R&D process, I've outlined that it's very important that we utilize competitive intelligence. Now, we all know that the pharma industry is very multifaceted, and it's multi-stakeholder. It's a multi-stakeholder environment. So even when we're looking at our own stakeholders, we're in the industry, again, analytics tools such as competitive intelligence really are important in the value chain. So you can see on this slide that, we've actually just explicitly stated some of those key stakeholders. You know, if we're looking at, for instance, as I mentioned already, our customers, our end customers, our physicians are those guys on the ground that will be using the treatment. So it's very important to try and understand their perception. They're the ones that will be using the treatment on a daily basis. They'll understand, you know, from a clinical trials perspective, actually what real world data tells us when they use the data, when they use treatments. I know there was a question already asked through LinkedIn about payers. You know, payers is such a massive subject, but you know, as I said, value is very important. So to try and understand payers, what they feel about the treatment is paramount. Also, as we already mentioned, the competitive landscape, competitors, they're probably very key too, right? As a stakeholder, we need to understand at every stage what the competitors are doing, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. Regulatory agencies, you know, you've got very big agencies like the FDA that are usually the gatekeepers of market success for a treatment, and the EMEA. You know, competitive intelligence always helps us to try and understand past reviews and not so current reviews, because I can't talk too much about, you know, a current treatment that's being approved. But you know, we can always get their thoughts and try and understand which way it could go for an approval. And then, of course, your market dynamics, always trying to understand, you know, what's going on in the market around you, in the bigger picture of the landscape that you play in. Thank you.
Thanks, Faheem, for highlighting the drug development value chain and the key stakeholder. So on this slide, this is a fantastic, you know, graphic prepared by Deloitte Center for Health Solution. And I immediately love this slide because when we see it from the commercial side of the pharmaceutical business, the business needs to, or whatever product we are developing, it needs to generate a value for each and every stakeholder in the value chain. So who are these key stakeholders? Patients, usually we refer them as consumer, because whatever you produce, physician is the customer, physician make a decision and patient consume. And the payer, insurance company, or you know, if the government agency, they are the one who's actually paying for it. Regulators are there who are actually going to approve it. Then your healthcare service provider, basically your hospital, clinics, pharmaceutical companies themselves, because they are there. It is not a charity; they are for business there. Academic institute, they are basically our key source of innovation. So whatever now you know translating into a drug, at some point of time it was just an experiment somewhere in the academic institute somewhere across the world. And the technology aspect, we are seeing you know technology helping us accelerate our innovation process. So what exactly everybody want? So if so sometimes we jokingly say that you know what patient want, patient definitely don't want a disease. So if you ask anybody, do you want to take medicine, the answer is no. But unfortunately that's not a reality. So what they want a better health care, simple convenient access. So for example, if you have a medicine option, so the patient was taking a drug every day, can you give it once a week? Can you give it once in a month? Can you give it once in a 6 month? Or can you give it once in a lifetime? Patient might say that, you know, give me once in a lifetime and I'm good. What does government and regulators want? They want, obviously, I won't use the word cheaper, but cost effective, because what India can pay, what US can pay, what UK can pay, or some other country can pay, it is you know very subjective and relative. But at the same time, what everybody wants is a safer option for their people. Nobody want to put their people life at stake. Insurance companies, we know that there is a cost dynamic attached to it. They are looking for cost-effective solutions eventually, and they want to prioritize the most value-creating product or services for their people. Sometimes going cheaper is not the cost effective. Okay, so there is a subjectivity there when you analyze the cost effectiveness value for money. Similarly, for healthcare structures, hospitals. So if you ask somebody in hospital, especially the government ones, if you ask them, do you want patient in your hospital? The answer is no. They want to keep patient outside. They want only critical patients inside, which is in proportion of their healthcare staff. They should be able to handle it. They don't want long queues in front of their hospitals. What pharma companies want, obviously, giving back to the society, the solution they are generating, but at the same time, a good economic profit with their investment they have made over the period of time. Academic institute, they want collaboration with the industry, with the um, with the government, so that whatever research projects they are working on, they have the nice funding. uh, because I'm in India, so I can empathize with my fellow researchers when they strive for better funds from government or from the industry to support their research work. Last but not the least, the innovative companies. So uh, we say that some people they have technology, but they don't understand the industry, and those who are in industry, they don't understand the technology. So how to make it merge together to drive best out of it. So these key stakeholder needs to work together, and somehow the CI professionals, they also get these sort of questions that how these collaborations are happening in the ecosystem. And sometimes some of these collaborations, they actually translate into a big competitive advantage. Next slide, please. Okay, so busy slide, but those who are unaware of how complex a pharmaceutical team structure can be. So this is just a glimpse of it. Okay. So you need a team for launch management. You also need operations and IT, which basically become the foundation of any organization. But how the people gonna work? You need medical affairs. You need marketing team. You need market researcher team, sales team, market access, clinical development, and those who are not those who have not heard about these verticals. So it is you don't need to go dig deeper into these verticals, but you need to understand the value of each of these verticals, why they need it. So these are business essential verticals. uh, in small companies, maybe one vertical is one person, but in the big companies, it could be a team of 50 or 100 people. For example, Novartis, Pfizer, GSK of the world. So they have these huge teams. What we have done is I've highlighted in yellow the team members, or the segment of the team where the CI input can create a significant value. Why it is related is, if you are operating in these vertical, and if you want to move ahead in ladder, above in ladder, so it's always good to benchmark your company services and product versus what is going on outside, and then bringing those best practices, or perhaps those examples where things have not worked for other companies, but it may be possible that your company is unaware of that, your team is unaware of that, how you can either save money. So I always say that so your no matter what you are doing in a company, either you are saving money or either you are making money for the company. So if the moment you relate it, then you are actually empathizing with your leadership, and this actually helps in advancing your professional career. Next slide, please. Again, another busy slide. Let me help you understand it. So at the top, what you are seeing is basically a subsection of what Faheem has shown you, the drug development process. Now we are seeing the last segment of it, where the drug has moved phase 2 and above, and either company is now planning to do their phase 3 trial, and they know that, okay, if everything goes well, this is the time frame when we are gonna submit NDA, and this is the time we have for the review period, and we get NDA approval, we launch. So some of the activity which you are seeing at the bottom, we don't have enough time to go deeper into it, but these are the certain activities which almost every company perform to make sure that by the time they launch the drug, their market is launch ready. People are aware about their drug, aware about its benefits, and they are ready to uh, take up this drug whenever it is available in the market. Yeah. Next slide, please. Over to you, Nishu.
Thanks, Viren. That was a great talk. Thank you so much, Viren, Atul, and Faheem, for sharing the valuable insights with the entire forum. Now, before we move on to the Q&A session for today, we are delighted to announce an upcoming workshop on the fundamentals of CI in pharma, tailored for working professionals, and it is scheduled for July 28th and 21st in Hyderabad. The registrations are now open and they're filling fast. Please secure your seat. This workshop will be a first of its kind industry-neutral academic collaboration between BRIC Academy and IIHMR Bangalore. We request you all to join our dynamic community and gain an opportunity to interact with the like-minded peers, seasoned mentors, as well as influential industry leaders. Further details around the workshop will be shared post this webinar via email. You can also follow us on our LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram handles to stay more informed on the recent updates. Thank you so much. All right. So now let's move on to the Q&A segment. Participants are kindly requested to submit their questions by selecting a button with three shapes, circle, square, and triangle at the bottom right corner of the screen. Please select the button, go to the Q&A and post your question. We will try our best to address as many questions as possible within 1 hour that we have today. While we await for the questions from the live audience, we can begin with the questions that we have received prior to this session. All right, so here is our first question. And it's around the workshop. Interesting. So what is the advantage of attending the workshop you're conducting in July?
I can take that issue. So I think it's a great opportunity to learn all the foundation and principles of competitive intelligence and competitive strategy. We're going to be covering all the different topics to enable participants to use it as a springboard in a career in CI. It'll open up new opportunities, new possibilities with companies that are setting up in India. It's a growth area. It's a focus on healthcare, but I think the skills that you learn are transferable to any industry and actually to life itself. I think CI is a growing field and it's very global. So this opens up global opportunities.
Yeah. So just to add what Atul has just mentioned, so the CI as a function itself is not very old. So this industry, especially in India, this started somewhere around 15 years back, and most of the people, they started accidentally. 15-year fast forward, now I think the global pharmaceutical companies, they have already accepted that India is a hub for these insights and analytics services. We know that Novartis established a global capability center. Lilly has it. Sanofi has it. Sandoz has it. Be it Roche. So you name any big pharma company, they have it, and it's a great competitive boost people can give to their career if they have a prior understanding of competitive intelligence, and not only CI, because it touches almost all the functions. Then they know that how a pharmaceutical business operates. Over to you, Nishu.
Thank you so much, Viren. So we have another question from our live audience, Anuradha. So she says that indeed it was a very great session. Thank you, Anuradha. Could you please summarize the key differences between market research and CI? Are
I'm happy to take
there
it
some
up.
similarities? Yes, of course. Viren is going to take that
Yeah.
up.
So, market research, we refer to surveys when we go out and interview physician or the other key stakeholders. Market. So, in pharma, we use the word patient-oriented programs. And these patient-oriented programs, when we are doing with physician, we use the word PSP and non-PSP, so which is patient support program and non-patient support program. So usually market research falls under the category of non-patient support program. And whenever a pharmaceutical company is doing it for their, to support their marketing activities or internal activities, they have to comply with the internal compliance, which means and this important one is adverse event reporting. So whenever pharmaceutical company is touching a patient, physician, or any other person who's relevant to the pharmaceutical value chain, if they report any adverse event, they have to report it back. And if they're unable to do that, then there is a penalty attached to it. So that's how the market research, and usually, there are multiple, almost at every point of time, pharmaceutical company running market research. When it comes to the competitive intelligence or the primary intelligence, this is something is done by the third party. And because we are not doing it, we are not the representative of the company there. So we don't need to report all such, so this compliance is not applicable on us when you are giving it to third party. So it become much more easier, and it become most. So one is the compliance, another is how quickly you can turn around things. So market research setup sometime may take 3 to 4 weeks, but in the world of CI, we can get the question and the response within a few weeks. I hope I answered your question.
I was just about to add, if I may, Nishu, this is an old age question that when I started professionally, I had as well. What's the difference between market research and competitive intelligence? That question always comes up. And I think just from a logistical point of view, when you're actually performing market research, some of you may know that you have a questionnaire that you employ, and you use that questionnaire for hundreds of physicians or patients or whoever it is that you're doing research on, whereas competitive intelligence is very, it's just having a conversation, very fluid conversation in real life, where you're having a conversation with a friend of yours. That's how it is with competitive intelligence. There isn't, although there's some questions you need to ask, it's very fluid and flexible in terms of the engagement that you have with the person that you're interviewing. So there are nuances logistically when you're performing market research versus competitive intelligence, but those will be covered more in the, I guess we'll touch upon that in the workshop later on in the year.
Absolutely, Faheem. Great answer. And I think we can move to the next question that we have. So it's for Viren. Viren, you talked about the benchmarking. So the question is, how would you get to know what are the CI best practices that could be implemented at every level in an organization? And this question is coming from Amol from the audience.
So to keep the answer short, as Atul said, it's an art and science. So we have these best practices coming from various organizations. So myself have worked with 3 organizations. We are bringing that best practice. If the question is how you would develop more confidence in it, so then there is also a science and methodology behind it. So CI is not about you ask somebody a question and he or she gave you a random answer and you're reporting it to organization. That's not how it works.
Absolutely. All right. So another question in line is from Omkar, where he wants to understand, can you brief a bit about what skills and qualifications are required to, make a transition from Pharma CI to Pharma CI from market research?
So the important thing is having a market research background is good, but I always ask people to understand the pharmaceutical business first. That how a pharmaceutical drug makes money, how it is serving the the society. At the same time, what is the expectation of each and every stakeholder. So for example, what your marketing director want, what is the market access guy want, what is the market affairs guy want. So the more you empathize with them, this is what actually helps. And at the same time, so this is from the expectation side, but if you also understand the various tools available, so if just imagine somebody's asking a question and you already have a source in mind from this is where I can get you an answer. So this is really help. Atul, you want to add something?
No, I think you've answered that.
Absolutely. The next question that we have is for Faheem. How the basic understanding of CI can help me in my career progression?
Thank you, Nishu. This is a great question, actually, and one that's very pertinent. Like we've all touched, it's very important to use such tools and services available because they're used, from very early on and continue to be used for, your drug's life. In terms of your own career progression, competitive intelligence really does build some core skills that you will inevitably use when you get senior in your roles. I can list some of them out that you may have come across already that you probably are doing right now. CI sharpens your mind. It allows you to think very critically and strategically, and enables that decision making. That's a very important tool, I think, and an asset to have. It allows you to identify competitive advantage. So as you become senior, even that's a very key skill to have, to be able to understand strengths and weaknesses and then identify those gaps, which is very important. Being market aware, very, very important. It helps. Again, transferable skill that you will have is enhanced problem solving skills. I think this is key again. I mean, we are all in the pharma industry, but the skills that you learn from this kind of work, it will enable you to go forth into other industries, because just of the way you start to think strategically. You're able to risk manage, again, very important. There's abundance of tools to be able to professionally network. LinkedIn, platforms like this, the workshop that we'll be having, we'll have industry thought leaders there, a great tool to be able to professionally network there. And there's always continuous learning and adaptation. An example of that is AI. Now we're all starting to talk about it. We're all starting to use it. And how does that impact us, within our competitive intelligence? So there's great progression, I believe, and it really does teach you fundamental skills that you'll need.
Thank you so much, Faheem. The next question is around GCCs. Why global pharma companies are setting up their GCCs in India and not elsewhere? Virendra, would you like to take that up?
So the simple answer is global pharma company have a 15-year of experience. So this is not the first time. So the experiment was done somewhere between 2005 and 10, and now people are seeing it is working. These people, they are not just using the offshore service. They literally have experts sitting in India in various fields who can support the global brand operations. At the same time, adding a very significant operational, the cost benefit. So the companies, they are coming with a mind that, okay, we will save 1 billion, 1.5 billion, 2 billion in next 5 years by transitioning these roles from Europe, US to India. Unfortunately, these major big products, they are going through patent expiry. Their sales gonna decline. So the pharmaceutical company, they are under a very significant pressure to reduce the cost of operation.
Absolutely great. All right. So let's move to the next question. It's what are the steps that are involved in CI to stay ahead of the competition?
I can take that. Thanks, Nishu. So I can give you an example which actually covers a little bit of the previous question about benchmarking. I've been involved with a lot of benchmarking with companies, helping them to set up CI systems, have best practices implemented, understand what's happening. So this example is where I went to Samsung in Korea, actually, and spent some time there. So the steps were, number one, you conduct an operational audit. You try and understand what their current CI systems are like. You interview people involved. Something was challenging. There were 14 different levels of hierarchy, and you have to understand that in the culture that over there, knowledge is power. So people were not sharing information. So that's one of the things that was identified. You identify the gaps and the inefficiencies, and then you try and implement a new structure based on the best practices. So decentralized versus centralized. You have an online portal. You encourage a culture of sharing. You have counter CI training. You invest in people, tools, put in monitoring programs in place. Have a way of disseminating breaking stories, and also put in place scenario analysis and planning so that people have a plan in place to react to different things. And then after a few months, you review and assess that whole program again. So those are the fundamental steps.
Thank you, Atul. So we would be taking one last question from the audience, and thanks for pouring in a lot of questions, all the participants. We will try to get back to you with the answers on the emails. So one last question is, are you also planning to conduct a workshop relevant to the students in future?
So, engaging with student is one of the major reason why I started Academic Next. I love that. What I learned with, by accident, I want that people should have the basic foundational knowledge, which they can use, which they should get prepared with when they are in institute, and when they come out, they are very much ready. Up to some extent, we were able to do that with NIPER Mohali, but I think that's a big gap which we need to address with other institutes. So this workshop is not aimed toward students. I think with the presentation which has gone through, you must have seen a lot of alien words. I think that is the vocabulary of the industry. So if you don't understand the vocabulary, I think it would be very difficult to understand what we are trying to communicate. So if you are a student, please work on this vocabulary, get yourself ready. And as soon as you spend 1 or 2 year in the industry, do attend these sort of workshop. Also, not only for knowledge, also for networking, and make best out of it. And if you are a student who are already understand the vocabulary, then be our guest, be at the workshop, and then take benefit of it.
Thank you so much, Virendra. We can move to the next slide. All right. So with that, I really want to sincerely thank you, all the participants and the speakers, for joining today's webinar. Thank you for the invaluable contribution and time. For those who missed out on any part of the session or wish to revisit it again, the recording and the presentation will soon be available on our Brick Academy YouTube channel. We will also be circulating a 3-minute feedback form. It's a very short form with all of you at the end of the session. We request all of you to please kindly take out 3 minutes and fill the form. It will help us improve. Thank you so much again. I hope you all have a restful weekend. Happy Friday.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for making out time on Saturday morning. And thanks, Faheem and Atul. I know it's very early in the morning in UK.
Thank you very much. That was really great.
Thanks. Bye.